Welcome back to the Pittsburgh Sportscast, where two college students discuss all things sports all year round. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Chris.
and we have yet another special guest episode. Of course, we were very thankful to have Andrew on Friday, but Chris, why don't you introduce our second ever special guest?
Yes, so we're going to be joined today by Kyle. Today's podcast is going to be heavily centered on soccer, mostly European soccer, and Kyle has a wealth of knowledge. So, Kyle, if you could introduce yourself.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be on the Pittsburgh Sportscast. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I go to school with both Ryan and Chris, and I've been playing soccer since I've been 4 years old. Been following the Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, Liga and Serie A, and other sports leagues in the FIFA headline, basically. I've been following them since about 7 or 8 years old, so I'm very familiar with the system and looking forward to talking about the current status of the world right now.
Yeah, sounds great. Of course, normally Pittsburgh sports is what we talk about, but we thought we'd take the time to discuss something that is happening right now, as opposed to most sports in America, with the possible exceptions of NASCAR, bowling, and golf. And if you consider cornhole a sport, we'll add that. But this will be a bonus episode. So we will be happy to be talking a little soccer today with our special guest, Kyle. So I was kind of thinking we could all just kind of go over the teams that we support. So, Chris, why don't we start off with you?
Yeah, so I support Manchester United, which is historically one of the best clubs in Europe. Supported them for about 5 years now. It's been an awful 5 years because this team has been horrendous. For the past 5 years, it's been very emotionally draining. But that is who I support.
Sure. So I supported Arsenal since I've been about 6 years old, shortly after the Invincible season with Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira, all the greats. Only team in Premier League history to go completely unbeaten throughout an entire season and 49 games straight. Multiple Premier League titles. And similar to Manchester United, the team has been in a bit of a financial crisis even before COVID-19, and it's been an interesting time for the Arsenal Football Club. We've been working on youth development and trying to build some more homegrown talent to get back to the ages that we were used to. So, been an Arsenal fan, always have, always will be.
Yeah, and I'm kind of relatively new to this whole soccer game thing. I actually became a soccer fan pretty much in the last year or two, and with the move over the past transfer window of Christian Pulisic, of course, the best American player right now, he has moved to Chelsea Football Club from Borussia Dortmund. So I have gone all in on the boys in blue at Stamford Bridge, and it's been an up and down year, but that's what happens when you get a 2-window transfer ban. Obviously, that was shortened to 1 window, but that didn't matter because we didn't sign anyone in January. So it's really been cool kind of seeing the young guys kind of play. Unfortunately, that leads to some inconsistencies, but we're looking to pick up some good pieces this summer, hopefully.
Yeah, so what I was thinking we could go on is just kind of talk about, kind of where teams left off before COVID-19, kind of the state the teams were in, where we kind of expect them to go. And I think then after that we'll get into some transfer talk, and then we'll hit some of the other leagues. So Ryan, I guess we'll start with you.
Cool.
What were your thoughts about Chelsea towards Corona, and where do you think they're going to be going here as they have 9 games left?
Yeah, they have 9 games left. They they're sitting currently in fourth place, 3 points above Man United. Uh, hopefully, hopefully we clinch UCL outright. Of course, we'll get into whether you need top four or top five later in this episode. But uh, yeah, I think it's been vastly up and down. This is obviously my first impression. It's it's very, I guess it's kind of poetic because this is kind of my first year as a soccer fan and obviously dealing with the up and downs of a season. So I think it was actually kind of nice that this is kind of the team that I picked. Um, Luckily, there's been a bit more highs than lows, and we're in a European spot right now. Unfortunately, we're likely to bow out of the Champions League should that finish. We're currently sitting 3-0 down, heading into any sort of second leg that could happen against Bayern Munich. And that was actually at the bridge. So we'd have to pull off 3 goals with none conceded in the reverse fixture in the second leg should the UCL ever resume, and that's in Bayern without conceding a goal. So unfortunately, we're likely to bow out of the Champions League. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really down to the wire last 9 games of the season. Big battle between us and you guys, Chris. Obviously, you guys got the better of us in both matches this year. I remember the first Chelsea game I watched was that game at Old Trafford. You guys crushed us 4-0. And then we were watching the game at the bridge. We were watching that together, and you guys got that 2-0 victory. But yeah, lots of things, I think. Definitely.
How was Arsenal faring?
So Arsenal had a very interesting season this year. It's a season of development, absolutely. We have gotten rid of prior manager Unai Emery, and we brought in current manager and former Arsenal center defensive midfielder Mikel Arteta as the current manager, and he is dubbed by most Arsenal fan base to be the next Arsene Wenger. He is someone who is, quote-unquote, supposed to have the Arsenal philosophy of attractive, fast build-up, possession-based soccer, and he is dubbed basically to focus on youth development and bring the passion and philosophy of the club back. Because that's something that Arsenal fans have felt a major disconnect with their club recently, and the ownership of the entire organization is they don't feel like it's the same Arsenal that they would watch 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. There are games when we're conceding upwards to 23 to 25 shots a game, and we are only sharing possession 50-50, sometimes losing possession. And that's just not the way that Arsenal was known to build their play. Previously, you even look back at the likes of when Cesc Fabregas and Santi Cazorla were running the midfield strings for Arsenal, we would average anywhere from 58 to 60% possession in a game. And recently, it really hasn't been there. This season hasn't been characterized by the results more or less than it has the on and off field drama. The Arsenal game versus Crystal Palace this year was basically the fulcrum of the entire season when Granit Xhaka unfortunately misused and abused his power as captain to lash out against the fans. If you haven't seen that video yet, I would encourage you, for context, to search it up real quick. Only takes 15 seconds. And yeah, it caused a massive circle of question over leadership. Right, that's another thing that Arsenal has really lacked ever since Patrick Vieira was captain back in the Invincible season and a couple afterwards. As a true leader. They never had like a true captain. And that showed this year because there were games, like I think of the Chelsea game recently where Chelsea came back and won even the 89th minute. In other games as well, I think of the Watford game especially recently, before COVID-19 hit, that there's just a lack of leadership and a lack of a spine in the team. And so that all contributes to not having a vision and a mission for the club and a philosophy for the club. And so Arteta is really going to be focusing on generating the youth and creating signings that might not necessarily be the best players, but have the best philosophy for the club, will buy into the system and work their butts off, right? And so that's what we're looking for moving forward. Arsenal are looking very unlikely for either Europa League or Champions League football. The only thing we can hope for is FIFA regulations moving forward with their theory. One of the theories that says that they would go based on historical performance, in which case Arsenal would get Champions League football by 4th position. But if we go by league finish, Arsenal's not going to be in any European football, and that will cause major financial reputations. But it's going to be unfortunate for the club. But yes, it will be interesting to see how they rebound from this year. Chris, shall I talk about a little bit more positive outlook in Manchester United?
Yeah, I think Manchester United's season can be summed up with kind of inconsistency, but not like how everyone thinks of inconsistent. We have performed well against the Big Six, against the teams like Liverpool. We were able to tie, which no one could tie Liverpool. We were able to tie Liverpool. We were able to beat Spurs. We beat Chelsea twice. So we've been able to beat the Big Six, but it's when we go to the other teams where we tend to really, really struggle. And it's because Manchester United plays a very, a very counter-attacking football, right? They like you to have possession and then take the ball and then hit you on the counter, which is what you can do against the Big Six because the Big Six tend to have the possession. They tend to have the more creative players. We had a January transfer window of excellence. Is all I could say, getting Bruno Fernandes in. To completely change the team, I've seen very few players change it the way that he's changed Manchester United. That midfield, to give us that maestro, that guy who controls it, who can pick out that pass, is what really United was missing since Pogba has missed legitimately the entire season. Right? It gives us that ability to have that passive breakdown, that defense is where we so struggle against the smaller teams. I think that's been huge. There's been a lot of controversy with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the manager. Some people think he's too inexperienced to lead Manchester United. They want Pochettino from ex-manager Spurs. But I think he's proven himself. I mean, his last main game, we beat City. We beat City. Manchester Derby was a huge win. Honestly, I thought before COVID, we were going to take Chelsea over for 4th. I thought we were in better form. I thought our schedule might have been a little harder than Chelsea's, but I thought we could make a move. So I think, like I said, with the acquisition of Fernandes, I think really has changed his team night and day. I think we still need to make some adjustments, especially with our back line. Back line needs some help for sure. But I think overall, from what we were at the beginning of the season until now, I think has vastly been improved. And I don't want to say optimistic as a United fan, but I think we're a piece or two away from being a true contender in the Premier League.
Definitely. Yeah, I know we're also on a first-year manager, of course, Frank Lampard, with, I do remember there being this sort of backlash initially. People were accusing him of favoritism and playing certain players that he was accused of preferring over potentially better skilled or better fit players. But I think opinion on him has improved as the season has gone on, especially considering the hand he was dealt with, not only with the transfer ban, but also I think that Chelsea showed confidence in him by not getting anybody. Obviously, it would have been nice to pick up a piece in January, but the Chelsea did not go after anybody. They held pat with what they got, and I think it'll be exciting to see what he can do with perhaps a better set of players. Hopefully, we can get some big moves this summer, which is what it's shaping up to be.
So I think your last comment kind of leads us into that next discussion of what would you like your team to do in the transfer window? What do you expect, and what would you like them to do?
Well, I think I think for Chelsea, I think that I obviously huge get from RB Leipzig. Timo Werner is shaping up to become a blue, and there's a lot of options you can have with him. You could obviously play him up top. You could play him as a winger. I know a lot of people want to see him and Tammy Abraham, who started off the season almost on fire, had the position to win the Golden Boot early on. Unfortunately, he kind of has cooled off late and more recently pre-COVID. But obviously there, and we've also already inked Ziyech. And now we're looking to sign others, including Kai Havertz from Bayer Leverkusen. So obviously, our attack is looking to be deadly next season. But I think where we really need to step it up is kind of like what with Man U, our back four, because I think our back four is what has led to the team's inconsistencies, and if we can get some competent defenders, I think that we can certainly challenge for the title next season and beyond, especially with this young core that we have.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd want Timo Werner to play off the left so that way Tammy Abraham can get that start up front. Honestly, at RB Leipzig, Timo Werner legitimately came off the left wing, even if he started up front and rotated with players like Poulsen and Emil Forsberg, Marcel Sabitzer, all those different players, and he's done very well on the left wing. So I think if you partner Tammy Abraham, who's in great form before getting injured in the Premier League this year, Timo Werner on the left and Christian Pulisic on the right, I think you have a great attack force, and you have a good midfield line to link it as well. So I think when it comes to Arsenal, one thing you'll notice is that fans' expectations never meet the club's actual realities. And fans understand the revenue that goes through the club. However, without European money and being in the Europa League or the Champions League, it is very difficult for Arsenal Football Club to commit large sums of cash because they have major investments worldwide in global engagement and different charitable funds, and that leaves a very minimalized transfer budget when you don't have European revenue. So if you ask the Arsenal fan base, who do they want to sign in the summer? They want an elite center back that's going to make the difference. Some would say you want an entire new back line, but that's not fiscally possible. And then you have also people that are asking for a central midfielder that can connect the play from defense to offense. However, I would argue that neither of those positions are the most crucial for Arsenal at the moment. I think, honestly, the biggest signing that Arsenal Football Club can make during the summer is the renewal of the contract of their captain and top goal scorer at the moment, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. If you can get him to sign at least a 1-year extension, hopefully a 2-year extension, I think would be absolutely essential for the club moving forward. You know, you look at the strikers that we've had in the past, and with all due respect, Olivier Giroud played his part and had a great play in Arsenal's team. Even though he didn't score tons of goals every season, he was crucial to the link-up play in a lot of games and won us a lot of games. But, you know, outside of him, there's legitimately not been a elite striker at our club since Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. So we have been signing players left and right, but there's just been no void filled. And with Alexandre Lacazette being rumored with Atletico Madrid for yet the third consecutive season, especially after the season he's had for Arsenal, not being terrible but not meeting expectations, you would definitely expect Arsenal Football Club to cash in on Alexandre Lacazette for anywhere from around 30 to 45 million pounds and be able to invest that money likewise in club. If that goes into Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's wages, absolutely go for it, because I think when you have someone who can guarantee you 20 goals a season up front, some upwards of 27 to 30 goals that he's already proven that he can score, there's like no cap to a player like that, especially for a team like Arsenal Football Club who are in a key stage of transition. And so where that leaves is either buying players that can fix it right now or investing in youth. And I think with the financial situation, not only without European revenue, but with COVID-19, Arsenal's going to have to go into the route of investing in youth. We already have great players like Reece Nelson, Gabriel Martinelli, and amongst others. Honestly, I could go on for a couple more, but I think one thing that is underrated is the new signing this season that was actually completed last season, but of course we sent him back on loan to Saint Etienne for the season, is young upcoming French prospect center back of William Saliba. I think he's someone who will, I think he's around 20 or 21 years old, and he will change the back line for Arsenal. And there's a statistic where Saint Etienne they've kept anywhere from 4 to 5 clean sheets without Saliba playing. And I think he missed about anywhere from 10 to 15 games in the season. And the remainder of the games he played, Saint Etienne kept clean sheets about 70 to 75% of their games. And for a young center back that's making that much of an impact in a top French division league, where you have teams like Monaco, Marseille, and PSG, he's going to be instrumental coming into the Arsenal back line. Arsenal fans will want you, of course, to buy Dayot Upamecano from RB Leipzig, but I think that he will eventually be priced out of a move, especially post-COVID-19. And so they're going to have to look at other targets. There have been center backs linked from Eintracht Frankfurt and other different clubs, but I think you're going to have to go with Socrates or David Luiz, someone like that, if they don't leave the club. Just one final thing I'll mention is that they're looking for a replacement for Mesut Ozil, right? And many fans are looking to move on Mesut Ozil's contract, with him being paid about £350,000 a week at the club, making him the club's top earner by about 40% to the next highest paid player. And so Arsenal Football Club are going to look to move him on and replace him by a man who plays for Feyenoord in the Dutch league. I apologize if I don't pronounce his name correctly. It's Ozir Orkan Korçu. I apologize if I didn't get that right, but he's a young, about 24-year-old Turkish center attacking midfielder, and he's put up great numbers in the Eredivisie. Look to get him for about 20-25 million pounds. That would be a fantastic signing for the club. So yeah, I think invest in the youth, get a replacement for Mesut Ozil, and potentially, if funds are available, grab another center back to partner William Saliba. And Arsenal Football Club are looking to have a great season next year.
Yeah. One thing on Chelsea's transfer, you're out of your damn mind if you think you can get Timo Werner and Kai Havertz in the same window with COVID-19
and financial fair play.
Yeah, don't want to end up
It's-
like Man City.
It's just not gonna happen. You can hope all you want. It's just
Yeah,
not
I think it. Yeah, I know we're looking. I know there are people trying to move guys. Conte has been rumored to be on the table. To be leaving. Obviously, Williams leaving, but he's free. I think Pedro's leaving too. So, yeah, it would be obviously a stretch and a pipe dream. Obviously, with Werner linked to us, Jadon Sancho, who was early on this season rumored to be wanting a move to Chelsea, obviously out of the question, unfortunately. But I would gladly take Timo Werner, who is definitely comparable and cheaper.
Yeah, for sure. For United, I think there's two schools of thought. Obviously Victor Lindelof is not Manchester United material. No offense to Victor Lindelof, he could be a great human, but just isn't cutting it as a center back for Manchester United. So obviously, you would like to see an upgrade in center back. You look at De Ligt. So you look at him, but he just moved. So I don't know how realistic that is. There are people within the fan base, right, who are like, we just need to outscore him, right? Because our backline, we have De Gea. Yes, he's been on the downward slide, agreed, but he's still one of the best in the world. Maguire isn't awful. He gets the job done. You have Wan-Bissaka, who's on the right. Phenomenal potential. So they're like, if you grab a Sancho or a Harry Kane, you just outscore him. Because Sancho's been linked with us, Kane's been linked with us. I'm hesitant on Kane because of his injury history. Because Spurs are going to want a lot of money for him. Granted, Spurs are in a whole bunch of chaos right now, which makes me kind of happy, but that's beside the point. They're going to want a lot of money, and to be honest, if you had to get me between Kane and Sancho, because again, with financial fair play, with COVID-19 and things, these teams aren't going to be able to spend what they normally would. That's just reality, right? So when we talk transfers, we have to be realistic. Where we may want half the world for Chelsea, but realistically, I don't care who the hell's going out. Teams can't afford that, and that's United, who's one of the biggest and richest clubs in the world, and we're going to be in the same boat, right? So we have to be cautious about how we spend the money and who. To be honest, realistically, I think Sancho is probably the most realistic signing. Then you look at different formations, because here's what's so frustrating about United. The biggest question may not be even who's coming in, it's going to be Paul Pogba, right? Does Paul Pogba stay? Do we sell Paul Pogba? What does that look like? Because if you sell Paul Pogba, right, that gives you more money to go and get maybe someone else because you can get, some change. But then again, we are in COVID-19 where teams aren't going to be spending what they normally would. So would it be advantageous to keep Pogba, recognizing the financial situation of these teams? Hopefully COVID-19 blows over, they can regain some financial stability and sell him for a higher profit somewhere down the line. Personally, that's what I would do. Yeah. Kyle is with me. Since, we're podcasting, you can't see us. Kyle's with me, and he says we need a CDM. We do. Scott McTominay, I don't think he cuts it. I don't think he's Man United material. I don't think Andreas Pereira. See, here's the thing. This is what's frustrating as a United fan, right? The back line, If you have a midfield of Pogba, if he stays, if we don't sell him, Fernandez, and you throw an Ndidi, right, to hold it for CDM, and then you don't even get Sancho. Just have Martial, Rashford, and Dan James sometimes. You know what I'm saying? That's functional. That's really, really functional. Now, I don't think, being a United fan, I don't think our fan base would be happy with Ndidi. I think, because again, when we're talking football and these big teams, like any American sport, teams have reputations, right? If you look at the NFL for an American example, if you look at the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers are known for what? Their defense. The Steel Curtain in the 70s, the Steel Curtain 2.0 with Palomalu and them boys back when we won the last two, right? Steelers, defense. Other teams, offense, right? And with soccer, as Kyle touched upon, Arsenal, they play a very defensive brand.
Arsenal play a very offensive brand.
Not with the talent they got.
Well, not right now. They're very counterattacking right now, but historically, they're one of the best, if not the best, offensive teams in Premier League history.
Ooh. Okay. I think United would probably have them in goals.
Depends on the year. Historically, Man United have probably scored more goals.
Yeah.
But in terms of fluidity and actually appealing football, Arsenal probably top in their prime years. But that's a source for debate.
That's a source for debate. That's beyond the point. What my initial point is that United score a lot historically. And right now, there aren't a lot of goals in the team. And that's just reality. So I think this is a piece of fan base. I think Sancho's the one. I just think Kane's going to be too expensive and too injury prone. He's not that much. He's not young anymore either.
He's
getting up
late
there.
20s.
He's late 20s. Sancho's what, 21? 22?
I think 21.
21? So you're going to get Sancho. You can get him. You can play him out wide. I mean, imagine the pace. If you want to play like a 4-3-3 with like Martial on the left, you throw Rashford. No, I changed that. Throw Rashford on the left. I like Martial playing striker. And then you throw Sancho on the right. And then you have like a three of Fernandes, Pogba if you don't sell him, and then there's someone in there, really. And then a back line of Maguire, Shaw, who I don't know why he's still on this team, but he is. Lindelof again, don't know why he's on the team. Oh, that back, see? I say that, then I look at the back line, I'm like, that's awful. You could do so much better than Luke Shaw. You could do so much better than Lindelof.
You can give him a little bit more credit than you are, but...
You clearly have not watched enough United games to see. Maguire's good. I give Maguire credit because he's really good in the air, and he plays that ball from the back to the midfield really well. And he does that really, really well. But Lindelof, I don't know. I guess Sancho's realistically, I would like to get De Ligt and have Maguire De Ligt. I think would be amazing. And De Gea back there with Bissaka and his potential, all that's sexy. But realistically, they're going to get Sancho, and we're just going to try to outscore people.
Yeah, I think, honestly, hoping for transfer De Ligt is probably not realistic at the moment.
Yeah.
He honestly is just got a transfer to Juventus from Ajax, where he went to the Champions League semifinals, or before Ajax got knocked out to Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason De Ligt has not been playing much this season is because of the excellence of Giorgio Chiellini and Leonardo Bonucci. And so I think De Ligt is still taking time to adapt to a very defensive style that is the Calcio A. And I think within a couple of years, De Ligt will be a staple at the club. I don't think Juventus are looking to sell as well. They would look to move on other center backs before they move on to De Ligt. But yeah, I think all of what we talked about is pretty realistic. I just want to, maybe we should talk about at least the remainder of the big six, just to discuss what transfers look like for those clubs. I guess I can start it off with Tottenham. They're a major rival to Arsenal, so I keep up with their transfer business and things of that nature. It's not looking good for Spurs at the moment. It's not necessarily due to financial stability, because honestly, I think Daniel Levy's done a fantastic job historically of generating homegrown talent and then selling it for large sums of money. You look at Gareth Bale, you look at Luka Modric, you got many other players you could use. Right now, there's a morale problem at Spurs. The players don't want to be there, it looks like. You have players like Dele Alli, Moussa Sissoko, Eric Dyer, who are just not wanting to play for the club. You look at them when they play, and there's no passion, there's no desire, there's no effort. And you even look at Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, Serge Aurier, even Hugo Lloris. You don't see the passion in it for the club anymore. And I think you're honestly going to see a max exodus of the club this summer, if not in January. I think the club is going to have an amazing pool of revenue. They could have upwards of £500 million in revenue this summer if the players that leave. You know, you've already had Christian Eriksen leave to Internazionale Milan, and it's just it's not looking good for Spurs. But I do think that they have a great opportunity to reinvest. You know, you look at the players that were bought with Gareth Bale's transfer money, and they really solidified the club with a couple long-term investments and a couple short-term patches. So Daniel Levy really does have the potential to identify and to manage the financial state of the club. Now, whether the club's going to put faith in Jose Mourinho to scout the correct players is another question. Because Pochettino obviously was head of the recruiting for Spurs at the time and made a lot of the signings for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how, when you see players like Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Moussa Sissoko, Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen all leave, who's going to come in to replace them? I think that's what's going to be very interesting. So yeah, that's where Spurs is. I think, Chris, you're probably in a great place to talk about the former champions, Manchester City.
Yeah. Well, one note on Spurs before we jump to Man City is I think the signing of Mourinho I think was a big mistake. I think player morale was slow to begin with, and then Mourinho just killed anything they had. Because if you look at when Spurs played Ajax and the fire and with the comeback that they had under him, and then you look at Mourinho and how the entire team looks, I mean, it's bad. So I think the Mourinho signing was a major error. Man City is Man City, right? They're it's so frustrating, right? Because if you look at that team, there isn't a lot of weakness. You can't go and look at Man City and say, oh my word, they really need a player here. Because they can score with what's his name?
Aguero and Jesus.
Aguero and that's all you need to know. Aguero and Jesus. You know, they both. Jesus is Brazil striker, and we know how good Brazil is, and Aguero is Argentina striker, and you know, yeah, and you know how good he is. And then when you have De Bruyne, who for my money is probably the best midfielder in the world. I don't know.
At least in the Premier League.
And you have him toting him, and if you just watch him pass it, it's phenomenal. So you don't really have a weakness there. You know, I guess Edison, but I mean, he's not the greatest when the shot comes in, but he's so fantastic with his feet. He makes up, especially when you're a possession team like Man City is, and you don't give up a lot of shots because you always have the super ball anyway. So you don't really need an excellent goalkeeper. You really need that goalkeeper to really play that ball and keep the possession going. To have who's that center back? Young. It's fantastic.
Aymeric
Laporte. They could use, as Kyle and I were kind of going back and forth, a replacement for Otamendi. But the big thing with Man City with this transfer is going to be this financial fair play thing. How does this go? Because before they could bring in the big name player because they had the money, they were winning the league, they're in Champions League, right? But now if that's taken away, that takes away your money, because if you're a big name player, you're not going to go to City because they don't have Champions League, right? They may not even be eligible to win the Premier League, depending on what the Premier League itself decides to do with Man City, because that hasn't been decided yet. So if you're a hot signing or someone looking for maybe a big upgrade payday, Man City, yeah, they've been well in the recent memory, but man, there's a lot of question marks to be had with that club. And if there's someone like Man City and even a Chelsea or United, Liverpool, or look at someone like Ajax or Serie A or some other leagues and big name teams. I don't know if Man City's a number one destination just with their question marks. Maybe Champions League and they can play it, right? And then UEFA hands down soft and the Premier League chooses to do nothing. Then, yeah, maybe they can get a big name center back like Koulibaly. They could get they have the money to pay for Koulibaly if they want to. Because they really don't need a midfielder. They don't need a winger. They have 100 of them. They don't need a striker. So, I mean, if they want to get Koulibaly, they had the money. That would be, if I was Man City, that's probably what I would do. But again, it goes back to what are these question marks? Until we have some answers, Man City's transfer window is questionable. Because then even, I don't think this will happen, but I think this is a discussion that could be had. Let's say UEFA says 2 years, no Champions League. What does De Bruyne do? What does Pep do? Right? Because when you're a team such as Man City, you have a lot of talent. And Man City, whether people want to admit it or not, is an aging team in a lot of ways. Man City isn't as young as maybe a Liverpool is, right? So Man City is an aging team. So with an aging team, you have aging players. And if, they're locked down for 2 years, no Champions League, does De Bruyne ask out? Does Aguero ask out? Ask out. Does Pep himself ask out and maybe go to PSG? Right? PSG's managerial chaos. Let's be real, they've been managerial chaos for years. Right? So maybe the PSG job opens up. Retire. He could retire too. He's done enough. So, what Pep do? What do some of their big name players do? Those things down. So there's a lot of question marks around Man City. And I think
definitely.
Then you can talk about Liverpool.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Liverpool seems to be. I'm currently looking up any sort of transfer news, and it seems that they're taking an if it ain't broke, don't fix it attitude. Obviously, with the dominating performance they had, taking them, I think it was the second to last match day before the suspension with COVID, until they finally met their match with Watford. So, I mean, there's not much on the team you can improve. Obviously, they were one of the people linked to Timo Werner before they pulled out of that one and allowed, it appears, Chelsea to pick him up. Luckily for us, I guess. But Jurgen Klopp seems to have, again, it's a young team, as you said, Chris. And, I just think that he has faith in his guys. It appears that he's kind of shooting down rumors. Obviously, any sort of moves that they could have made or would have made are even less likely now due to the COVID-19 situation with perhaps limited funds. But I think it's all going to come down to whether this team can keep its form that it had the past 2 seasons, of course, with the Champions League title win, and then now with basically cinched up Premier League title, their first ever. So, yeah.
What's funny about this, too, is that we're talking the big six, Arsenal, Spurs, and all that. And there's just flipping Leicester City chilling in, 3rd place. We're here, we won the league a couple years ago, and we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere, and no one talks about it. It's great.
Yeah,
and then Sheffield United look like they're going to be playing in Europe.
Yeah, if we go by standings, absolutely. Yeah. Sheffield are currently in 5th place, so.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think maybe as well, maybe looking at 1 or 2 big-name prospects in the current market and seeing where we think they could potentially land if we think that they're going to move. I think one interesting name that is definitely worth bringing up is Erling Braut Haaland, who has just recently moved from Red Bull Salzburg to Borussia Dortmund, and has obviously been setting the world alight. He has been, I think he is, honestly, I think he has more goals than games. And I could be wrong on that, but
He
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 is
came
someone
in as
who's good,
yeah.
Ryan.
He came in as a second half substitute in his first appearance in the Bundesliga and got a hat trick.
Yep. I mean, and the kid's 20 years old. It's literally phenomenal. And I think what's interesting about the situation, similar to Timo Werner, who had a very relatively inexpensive release clause in his contract, Erling Braut Haaland has a £52 million release clause at Borussia Dortmund. And if you look at big name clubs like Real Madrid, Barcelona, even Man City and Liverpool, who might not necessarily need him at this point, but have the funds to do it and could easily pay that $52 million for the best young prospect borderline in the world right now.
Dude, could you imagine if Liverpool sells Salah or Mane?
That's an
right?
interesting. That was someone I was going to bring up as well. I genuinely think that Liverpool are really considering selling Sadio Mane at this point.
I do too. And imagine that you sell Mane, they're going to get a ton of cash for him,
100 mil plus,
and you give it and spend half of it for Haaland. Oh my word! As a United fan, I think I'd cry.
Yeah, I think you'd almost get a role reversal with, almost back to the days of the Busby Babes after, and how Liverpool was, setting the league on fire after back in the 60s and stuff.
Where do you think Neymar's gonna go?
I honestly think no one will be. PSG genuinely prices their players really, really high. That's why Mbappe hasn't left. That's why Di Maria hasn't left. That's why Neymar hasn't left. And Marquinhos, so on and so forth. I genuinely don't think that Neymar will leave PSG. I think that because he has 2 years left on his contract, I believe, they will keep him and they will force him to stay at the club, and then PSG will either let him go for free because Neymar probably will not sign a new deal, or they will sacrifice and get a super cut deal on him at maybe £60 million.
You know what no one's talking about, but I think should be? The two Spanish giants aren't in vintage 5 years ago. They're both old. Barcelona has major issues up top. I'm not talking striker up top. I'm talking up top organizationally, right? Messi's keeping Barcelona afloat.
It literally, when Messi leaves Barcelona, Frankie de Jong needs to be in his prime, or else the club is not in a great direction. Most of the money that they have spent historically, you look at Luis Suarez, you look at Ousmane Dembele, Philippe Coutinho.
That was such a bad signing.
I don't think they were necessarily bad signings. I just think it's poor management and unlucky injuries. And just not good enough coaching in order to bring them back to full form once they've been injured.
But yeah, I think it is kind of interesting that nobody talks. Obviously, I think that the big two in Spain, sort of like the glitz and the glamour, has kind of been lost with the departure of Ronaldo to Juve. So El Clasico is still El Clasico, but it's no longer best versus best, Ronaldo versus Messi. So I think that could be perhaps why they don't talk about them as much. The publicity.
If you
everyone
look
in the world had their eyes on that match. But
if you looked at La Liga, if you paid any attention this year, Barcelona and Real Madrid were playing who wants the league, because Barcelona would take the league and then they'd have an awful game and they give it right back to Real Madrid. And the next game, Real Madrid would do something stupid and tie some no-name team, and then give it right back to Barcelona. And they've done that the entire season. It's legitimately been who really wants to win this league, because neither one has played well enough to win the league. But it's La Liga, and they had enough of a gap because Atletico has kind of struggled this season, and Sevilla and some other teams, Valencia. And I don't know, like, kind of, if you even want to make the argument, Ronaldo kept Real Madrid afloat, to be honest. I mean, they have, like, I'll give Real Madrid this. They have more young stars than Barcelona do. Young up-and-coming talent.
Barcelona have Ansu Fati at left wing, who's looking to be somewhat decent. Frankie de Jong obviously has great potential, but when you look at young talent elsewise, you don't see much.
Mm-mm.
I think what's genuinely interesting with Real Madrid is, how are they going to replace their star player Ronaldo, right? You think historically they thought that Luka Jovic was going to be the man to fix the job, and he still could very well be the man to fix the job. But when in doubt, rely on Karim Benzema for Real Madrid. I mean, he is a fundamental striker who is always going to be in the right position at the right time, getting you a consistent 10 to 15 goals a season. And it's interesting to see, you have players like Kylian Mbappe, Erling Braut Haaland, and more who are lighting the world. You can even look at Ciro Immobile in the Calcio right now, and they're just lighting the world apart. And so I think it's very interesting that you could go down that route and just see, especially if Gareth Bale leaves Real Madrid, to see who they're going to replace him with. Absolutely. And one other thing you'll note for our audience is that, you can kind of attest to our American bias here. Like El Clasico is still El Clasico and always will be El Clasico, especially for those of you in Spain. It's like, watching a Manchester derby or a London derby here in England, or any, you look like Juventus or Lazio and Roma, Juventus and AC Milan, Inter Milan, games like that. It's still El Clasico in Spain, and we don't mean to disrespect any team in any facet here. It's just kind of noticeable for at least the worldwide audience that once the Ronaldo versus Messi rivalry came to an end, that, some people kind of dropped off the radar a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the worldwide TV ratings, at least 6 times that of the Super Bowl. So obviously, and that was in the Ronaldo Messi era. Obviously, they've dropped off a bit since then. So I think that really speaks to it. The worldwide appeal that El Clasico had for those glory years where Ronaldo took on Messi, because that was a very special time. Not often do you have the 2 best players in the world in the same league for rival clubs.
I'm probably going to do that right now, to be honest. Okay, I think we've said enough about transfers, windows, and our teams in the Premier League, because I think we're running a little bit over. I will keep
52 and a half minutes.
Oh, how many?
52 and a half minutes.
Oh.
We're fine.
Actually, yeah, if we have another topic, because English, our other podcast today was 105.
Okay, I mean,
so if we have another topic,
we
can
literally
discuss it.
talk about anything that you want. Like you said,
well,
talk about really anything.
Maybe we could just kind of predict how these last 9 or 10 matches will, how the Premier League season will shape up, aside from the bold prediction. Oh my goodness, I think Liverpool's gonna win the league. Sorry to you null and voiders out there, but looks like we're gonna finish this one out, and it looks like Liverpool will be lifting the trophy whenever that may be, whether that's in the middle of next season when they can have fans again, or they do it with no fans at the end of this season. But Liverpool far and away 25 points clear of Man City. Man City do have a match in hand, but what does that matter? But other than that, of course, I've got the Premier League table pulled up on my phone. So Liverpool far and away first again, 82 points. Man City with a match in hand, 57 points in second place. Leicester City, third at 53. They do not have a match in hand. My Chelsea Blues, in fourth at 48 points. Man United, fifth with 45. Wolves, sixth with 43. Sheffield United with 43, but they do have a match in hand. And going down, just covering the rest of the big six, Tottenham in eighth with 41, and Kyle's Gunners in ninth with 40, and they do have a match in hand, as does Sheffield United, Man City. And so thoughts on how the rest of the season will play out, who's going to make top 4 or top 5 if Man City's appeal gets upheld. We won't know until July whether the ban will stand. So who's going to Europe? Who's falling off? You guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think just one thing to acknowledge really quickly before we go and give our predictions is to acknowledge the regulations that FIFA has been bringing out in terms of how we're going to move forward with football after post COVID-19. They have reinstated a game plan, so to speak, of being able to continue the Premier League with no fans and following CDC guidelines. And I don't know what the organization is for Britain. It's like NRA, I think.
No, it's
something
NH, because it's National
NHS.
Hospital. NHS.
Yeah, the NHS. Following those guidelines, and they're hoping to resume play within a week to 2 weeks, and teams are going to be very overworked. They're looking to resume next season relatively on time. And so you think to cram 9 games into approximately a month and still give time for a summer transfer window, you're going to be looking for a very busy summer for these teams. But yeah, I think to answer your question, Ryan, of who I think is going to be in Europe, I think it's very obvious that Liverpool and Manchester City will both make Champions League football, given that Manchester City will have their appeal in their favor. In terms of other teams, but I'll name up to potentially 3 teams that could win Champions League football. I honestly think that Chelsea kind of haven't secured this season. I think their mentality under Frank Lampard, especially towards the latter end of the season here, has been very, very good. I think moving forward that they're going to have a better team cohesion and be able to have an opportunity to squeak into the Champions League. I also do think that Manchester United will squeak into the Champions League as well. I think that given that Manchester City's appeal will probably not go their way, we can expect to not see Manchester City go into the Champions League for this coming season. And so with that, it's going to leave an opportunity for 3 teams outside of Liverpool to make the Champions League. Manchester United have been on a good string of form, and I honestly think that with the players that they have, especially with the spark that is Bruno Fernandes, who has really gone under the radar in terms of worldwide reputation and prestige. I think he's really going to be able to carry the team's success moving forward. And in that final Champions League spot, I honestly think that Leicester City, we will see them back into the Champions League. I know I just picked the 3 highest, but you look at the relative competition to these teams, you think Wolves usually will bottle a big opportunity like that, similar to Sheffield United. And I think Sheffield United they've been fantastic coming up. I think Chris Wilder's done a fantastic job of not only keeping the team afloat, but literally bringing them to, I think it was 7th place, you said, Ryan. So
yeah, 7th place with the match in hand.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic for them, as many people touted them to go down. But, right, this would normally be more of a conversation if you have Arsenal and Tottenham having a normal season like they do, but unfortunately it's a season transition for both London clubs. And so with that, I think the Champions League prediction, especially with Man City having their appeal most likely not going to go their way, makes it very simple. Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, Leicester City, those should be the teams you expect in Champions League next year. Now, Europa League's a little bit more interesting. I personally would absolutely love to see Sheffield United in the Europa League. I would absolutely love to see it. In terms of who I think will be Europa League, I genuinely think that it's between either Wolves, Sheffield United, or Spurs. I know how Arsenal are at the end of the season. They often bottle games at the end of the season, and so I don't think they're going to have the mentality, especially after COVID-19, to rebound. I can see the same thing very similar to Spurs and them not having the mentality to move forward. Yeah. But, if I had to throw a name out, I'll just throw Sheffield United just because I really want to see them in the Europa League.
What's interesting is if you look at Liverpool, right, they're running away with it. That's just reality, right? Man City also running away with it as well. But then you go to Leicester, right? Because something that no one's really talking about is what form are these teams going to be in? Like, these teams haven't played in 2-3 months. It's not like we're going to get a vintage Man United. It's not like we're going to get an on-form Chelsea. You're going to get a Chelsea, Man United, Leicester City, everyone who's been sitting down for 3 months and doing who knows how, depending on what country you're from, right? Or if you went home, were you able to go home? What does that look like? And I'm kind of looking at the standings. I have them up on my phone as well. Like, dude, if Leicester, for some reason, like, comes out cold, and, like, maybe a Chelsea United and throw Wolves in there, like, get hot.
I honestly don't think there's much room for variation at this point.
There isn't.
Like, especially with City's appeal, it makes our Champions League predictions pretty easy.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
if a team falters, like Leicester could falter, or maybe a Chelsea, Man United, could get into like a true top four. I don't know. I think United could catch Chelsea. We're in good form. We beat you guys twice anyway. If you slip up once, we just have to win one more game than you, and then we own tiebreak.
yep. Or no, tiebreak's goal difference. But
I
that,
think we still own that too.
yeah, you have us by 2 on goal difference.
Okay, so we just have to win one more game than you, which
And
isn't
make sure
that
you beat us
unfeasible.
on goal difference.
Right, because then we would win. Yeah, assuming
Or
we
I
keep
think-
goal difference the same, we just got to win one more.
Or actually, is it wins then goal difference? Or is that just for the title?
No, I believe it's goal difference and then head-to-head record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which we beat you as of right now in both
Yes.
areas.
Yeah, it goes goal difference, then head-to-head record, then home win, away win, and then goals scored. Those are the 5
Okay.
tiebreakers.
Okay. By a home win, away win, do they use the Champions League style away goals rule?
No. So basically, they look at the head-to-head record. If it's like a win one, loss one, if they look at the games and be like, if they won at home and then they lost away from home, vice versa, they'll give that more weight.
Okay.
So
I see what you mean. Okay. All right, I see what you're doing. Okay, but yeah, hopefully Man City's ban gets upheld. I don't have as much confidence, especially with, I know this is going to court, but this is still UEFA we're talking about, and FIFA that we're also talking about. The same organization that, of course, gave a World Cup to Qatar, but that's another conversation. Obviously, I hope that Man City can be brought to justice and serve the appropriate penalty, but I wouldn't set it in stone that the ban is going to be upheld. I mean, obviously, the numbers are there, but, I just hope that they do the right thing.
We can only hope at this point, but I think they will. Because then, if they don't punish Man City, then what stops any other team from doing exactly what they did? Nothing.
Well, look at what baseball did. I know this is a different sport, but look at what baseball did with the Houston Astros and how they
people
butchered
are ready
that.
to burn down the commissioner's office. Have you heard one pundit, one writer, one fan who isn't a Houston Astros fan who said the MLB did a good job here?
Exactly. This is exactly the conversation we had with Andrew earlier on our last show.
It was.
But that would unfortunately, if Man City is banned, the only thing that we are robbed of is a top 4 battle between Chelsea and Man United. Potentially Sheffield. They obviously have a match in hand, so they could overtake Man United. If they are able to win that extra game. Obviously, Wolves 6th right now, but as Kyle said, we know their reputation for bottling games late. Spurs kind of lingering in there.
Thanks, bro.
But what?
I said thanks for pointing that out again. Appreciate that a lot.
Of course, Spurs could potentially claim that Europa League spot. Arsenal on the very outside. But yeah, assuming Man City is banned, I think it's very easy for it to be Liverpool, Leicester, Man United, and Chelsea in no particular order as of now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty consensus.
Yeah, the only question it will be who gets the guaranteed spot between you guys and us. So I think that's all the soccer we have to talk about. You guys have any other topics you'd be willing to put forth here?
No, I think we're good.
It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the Pittsburgh Sportscast. Thank you to both Chris and Ryan, not only for your casting abilities, but also just for your willingness and hospitality for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. Thank you too, Kyle. We're really glad to have you on here, and we're glad that we can have yet another special guest. Already 2 episodes in a row with a special guest here. So, with that being said, remember to, if you're watching this video on YouTube, remember to like it, share it, subscribe it. You can find us on YouTube. Pittsburgh Sportscast is the channel name. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, comment below questions, comments, concerns. We love to answer any fan question that comes our way, so feel free to drop us a line. You can also interact with us on Twitter at PGH Sportscast or via our email at pittsburghsportspodcast@gmail.com. And so with that, thanks once again to Kyle. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Chris.
And we will see you next time on the Pittsburgh Sports Cast. Thanks for listening. Good night, everybody.